Reading a story without an ending can haunt you for life. Little Maple reminds you that this entire piece is a continuous update, and it's not easy to produce, so we hope everyone will enjoy it. Alright, let's begin the main story. On the day of my engagement to my fiancé, he held the hand of his mistress and knelt before my mom, asking for her blessing in front of our relatives and friends. Before I could say anything, a man stepped onto the stage and said, "Let me handle this for you, brother." He was crazy. A month before my engagement to Henry, Flora returned from abroad. Henry forgot that we were supposed to try on wedding dresses and rings that day and rushed to the airport to pick up Flora. He even threw a welcome party for her. I waited at home from morning till afternoon, only to receive a photo posted by Henry's brother in the group chat. In the photo, Flora was surrounded by people, holding a bouquet of roses with a bright smile, and my fiancé had his arm around her shoulder, tilting his head towards her. In the picture, Flora and Henry look like a couple, making me, the legitimate fiancé, seem like a clown spying on someone else's happiness. "Oh, Jack, why did you post that photo in the group? Belle is still in the group." Oops, my hand slipped. I'll delete it right away. Henry's brother quickly realized and retracted the photo, but I had already guessed Henry's location from the background of the room. I went out, hailed a cab, and gave the driver the address. As the car drove, a thought suddenly crossed my mind. I seemed like a resentful woman going to catch her cheating partner. Before I could figure it out, I was already standing at the door of the room. Through the glass on the door, I saw the lively scene inside. Flora had lost a game and was being coaxed into drinking a toast with a male guest. As expected, she was pushed in front of Henry. Both of them blushed but were smiling. Just as Henry was about to drink the toast, I pushed the door open. "Henry," I said. The music in the room stopped abruptly. Henry's smile froze when he saw me. "Sis, what are you doing here?" one of Henry's brothers asked awkwardly. Henry quickly regained his composure. "Sonny, what are you doing here?" I didn't plan to throw a tantrum with Henry, so I softly explained, "We agreed to try on wedding dresses today. I waited for you at home, but you didn't come." Henry seemed to remember and hurried over to me. "I'm sorry, Sonny, I forgot. I'll go with you now." Henry took my hand to leave, but suddenly Flora called out plaintively, "Henry!" Henry stopped. Flora said, "Henry, I just got back, and you." She trailed off, but her eyes said it all and Henry was torn. "Sonny, Flora just got back, and I promised to throw her a welcome party. Can we try the dresses another day?" He looked at me as if seeking approval. "You know Flora is a good friend of mine." "A good friend? What kind of man sets a good friend's photo as private and checks her Facebook updates despite the time difference?" I didn't want to expose Henry's unspeakable feelings for Flora. After all, our engagement was just days away, and the position of Mrs. Henry would be mine. I gave a considerate smile. "All right." Henry was visibly relieved. He held my hand and even asked, "Sonny, why don't you stay?" "No, the ring you ordered for me has arrived. I'll go pick it up." "All right then." I turned and left the room. Looking back, Henry had already rejoined them. Continuing the interrupted toast with Flora, I heard Flora's voice, "Henry, I didn't expect you to get engaged to Sophie." "It's not a wedding, just an engagement." If the Summer family hadn't been so persistent, Hank might not have even agreed to marry, Henry's brother teased. "Really?" Flora looked at Henry. Henry just smiled without saying anything. Henry's brother said, "Good thing Summer didn't stay, or how could we have fun?" "Flora, don't say that about Sophie. I think she's nice, quiet, and obedient." "Quiet, yes, but also dull and boring." "Hank, are you sure you won't regret marrying her?" "What does it matter if I regret it?" That was Henry's answer. I believe if I were there, Henry wouldn't have given such an answer. But he was with Flora and those brothers. Those brothers grew up with him and knew Henry's true feelings. He might like me, but with Flora there, His feelings for me could only come after Flora. This was something I knew from the start. Fortunately, my feelings for Henry weren't that pure either. Still, hearing Henry's answer stung a little. I met Henry in our sophomore year of high school. I had just transferred and was quite introverted with few friends. Henry, the class president, took care of me. And because of his kindness, I was more willing to interact with him. But I knew Henry liked Flora. Flora was the class's arts representative, vibrant and warm yet gentle and gracious, like a combination of red and white roses. She could blend in with the boys in class, yet maintain a mysterious distance. This contradictory yet charming trait made her quite popular for a time, and even Henry wasn't immune to it. In their senior year of high school, Henry and Flora started dating, but it wasn't smooth sailing, primarily due to their differing plans for the future. Flora wanted to pursue art and study abroad to grow, while Henry's family hoped he would attend a business school in the country to eventually take over the family business. They argued about this several times, and ultimately, Flora went abroad. Before leaving, Flora hugged Henry, leaving behind tears that were both strong and reluctant. "Henry, please forgive my selfishness. I can't stop my steps for you, but my heart will always keep a place for you." Henry was also moved. Me too. After that, Flora and Henry seemed to retreat to the boundaries of friendship. They didn't delete each other from social media. Flora would share her experiences abroad with Henry, and Henry would like her posts. Throughout this, I was always an observer of the two of them. Until our sophomore year, when Flora started dating someone new and posted about it on Facebook, and I, because I chose the same major as Henry, found our family's businesses intertwined. At a certain banquet, Henry's mother suddenly pointed to me and Henry. "Look, in the blink of an eye, these two kids have known each other for so many years, standing together. They really do make a good match." Henry and I exchanged a glance, and I was the first to look away, smiling slightly without speaking, while Henry showed a contemplative expression. After the banquet ended, Henry suddenly said, "Sophie, why don't we give it another try?" When he said that, I didn't actually see any affection for me in his eyes. His gaze was calm, looking at me yet seemingly at someone else. "Okay," I agreed, considering the mutual business interests of our families. My parents only have me, their daughter, and I have to bear the responsibility of the family, which might mean an arranged marriage with someone beneficial to the family business. The Henry family happened to be within my range of choices, and at the time, I had a decent impression of Henry. We dated for 4 years, and to say there were no feelings would be impossible. Now finally getting engaged and stepping into marriage, I was quite satisfied. However, I didn't expect Flora to return at this time. Her appearance made me uneasy, as if a perfectly smooth plan suddenly had a complication. I was walking restlessly down the hallway when I suddenly bumped into someone. "Sorry," I said softly, looking up to see the man in front of me. I froze for a moment. The man standing before me was lighting a cigarette. The small wheel of the lighter clicked, and the flickering flame reflected his cold, aloof eyes behind the glasses. But because of my collision, the flame went out, and the light in his eyes seemed even colder. "Mr. Victor," I said, catching my breath, not expecting to meet him here. "What did you call me?" The man removed the cigarette, his eyes deep and frowning. He was tall and lean, dressed in a white shirt and black pants, with a pair of gold-rimmed glasses on his nose. Despite his scholarly appearance, I noticed the defined and strong muscles on his forearm as he rolled up his sleeves. This was a man who exuded immense power. I swallowed, the words rolling around in my mouth before I finally said them. "Vic?" This man was none other than Henry's cousin, Victor, only a few years older than Henry and me, but already holding a significant position among the younger generation. The first time I met him was when Henry and I visited his family elders. The room was full of Henry's relatives, yet Victor sat in a position of authority. "Susie, this is my brother, Victor," Henry introduced. I smiled and shook Victor's hand, respectful yet not losing decorum. But the first time Victor saw me, his gentle eyes turned cold, as if he had some inexplicable anger and resentment towards me. "Belle," he called my name, sending a chill down my spine. "Yes," I responded, confused but nodding nonetheless. "Good name," Victor chuckled, but it was cold. He took the tea I offered but didn't drink it, casting a meaningful glance at Henry. Later, I asked Henry if his brother didn't like me. Henry, oblivious as ever, replied, "No, my brother is just like that. Don't be fooled by his gentle demeanor, we're all actually afraid of him." Indeed, we were afraid, and so was I. After that meeting, I never saw Victor again, until now, when I not only saw him but bumped into him. Victor asked me, "What are you doing here?" Naturally, I couldn't say I was looking for Henry, who had left me to celebrate his muse's birthday. "Visiting a friend?" I lied. Victor raised an eyebrow and asked if I was ready to leave. "I'll take you," he said, his tone leaving no room for refusal. I followed Victor to his car, only realizing once I got in that I had just gone along with him. Victor drove with a focused expression, casually asking, "Where are you headed?" I suddenly remembered what I had said to Henry earlier in the room, to pick up the ring. His hand on the steering wheel seemed to stiffen for a moment. "I remember today is the day you and Harry are trying on wedding dresses." Where's Harry?" "Not with you? He's busy," I lied again. Victor glanced at me this time. He's sharp, and I was afraid he'd see through me, so I avoided his gaze. Fortunately, Victor didn't ask anything further. He dropped me off at the mall parking lot. "Thank you," I said, noticing he got out with me. "I have nothing going on today. I'll join you." "No need, go ahead." I followed Victor into the jewelry store, stated my purpose, and provided the receipt. The clerk quickly brought out the diamond ring Henry had ordered. "Miss, please extend your hand." I extended my hand for the ring fitting, but suddenly Victor spoke up. "Let me do it." He took the ring and slipped it onto my finger. "It suits you perfectly," the clerk exclaimed in admiration. I was shocked, looking at Victor, still processing his unexpected action. Something felt off. Victor examined my fingertip, then suddenly asked, "Are there other styles?" Even the clerk was surprised, as was I. "Yes, there are." The clerk, quick-witted, promptly brought out a tray of diamond rings. "These are the store's treasured collections." Victor lowered his gaze, seriously selecting one. "This one." He chose a large pink diamond. Just as he was about to replace the ring on my finger, I quickly withdrew my hand. Victor paused, holding the ring, and I finally reacted. "Vic, this diamond ring is quite nice," I said, unsure if it was because of how I addressed Victor. The clerk, who had been smiling, suddenly widened her eyes, cautiously glancing between Victor and me. I asked the clerk to wrap the ring, took the package, and left, not daring to look at Victor again. It wasn't until I was halfway out that I realized Victor was still following me. "Vic, maybe you should head back," I whispered, and Victor adjusted his glasses. "Sorry, I was a bit abrupt earlier. I just thought as the new member of the family you should have something better. So that's what it was." I breathed a little easier. "Thank you, Vic, but what Hunter gave me is already enough." Victor pursed his lips in silence, and when I looked up, I realized I had already reached the bridal shop. The receptionist, who had seen me before, warmly greeted me and led me into the store. "The dresses you liked before have arrived. Since you're here, why not try them on?" Instinctively, I glanced at Victor. He hadn't left. Instead, he calmly followed me inside. Why was he coming in? He wasn't the groom, but the clerk, perhaps a bit blind, actually addressed him as Mr. Victor. "Since you're here, try them on," Victor said nonchalantly, meeting my skeptical gaze. He added, I've attended several bridal shows abroad. Trust me, my taste is better than Hunter's. He knew that wasn't what I meant. The clerk ushered me into the bridal exhibition room. Seeing all the wedding dresses, I couldn't help but feel a sudden urge, perhaps because of Victor's words. When I put on the wedding dress and saw myself in the mirror, it was impossible not to feel moved and excited. I was about to wear the dress I loved and marry the person I loved. As I admired myself in the mirror, I suddenly saw Victor behind me through the reflection. He was watching me, but his expression was unclear. The light refracted off his glasses, obscuring his eyes, but I noticed a slight smile, neither happy nor unhappy. I was momentarily affected by his inexplicable mood, wanting to see more clearly. But just then, Victor's gaze in the mirror shifted, catching mine instantly. My heart raced in confusion, and I looked away. "I'm done. I can change now," I said, retreating back to the fitting room. The dress seemed a bit tight, making it hard to breathe. I reached for the zipper at the back, but it was stuck and wouldn't budge, trapping my hair. While trying on the dress, the clerk had thoughtfully left to give us some privacy. So, had the clerk returned? 2 or 3 minutes of silence passed, and I still didn't hear the clerk's footsteps. Sometimes such thoughtfulness doesn't need to last so long. "Vic," I called, pulling back the curtain slightly to reveal my head. Victor seemed to have been watching me. "What's wrong?" he asked, stepping forward, casting a deep shadow over me. My face flushed. "My zipper is stuck." Victor was silent. I intended to ask him to call the clerk, but he suddenly offered, "I'll help you." "Huh? Where's the zipper?" "At the back." His voice seemed to have a magical quality. Every time he asked, I couldn't help but respond. Victor pulled back the curtain. In the fitting room, I turned my back to him, feeling his warm fingertips touch my spine, sending a shiver through me. There was a mirror in the fitting room, too. I tried to avoid it, but my gaze inevitably drifted to the mirror. In the mirror, Victor was bent over, seriously examining the stuck zipper of my wedding dress. His long lashes hung low, the light falling gently on him, soft and clear, completely different from the cold, oppressive figure I had just encountered in the hallway. "All right," Victor said, lifting his gaze to meet mine in the mirror. Just for a moment, the atmosphere turned silent and ambiguous. I felt inexplicably flustered, stumbling over my words. "Thank you, Vic. So, let's go out." I lowered my head, preparing to leave the fitting room. As I passed Victor, a large hand suddenly grasped my arm. Shocked, I looked up to find Victor's deep eyes behind his glasses. "You came to try on the wedding dress and ring alone. Where's Harry?" "I told you he had something to do," I replied, frowning. "What could be more important than you?" His words made my heart drop and then race. "Victor, he let you come alone because his first love returned." I hung my head in silence. Victor stared at me, his gaze intense. "Hunter is my brother. I watched him grow up. I know him well. There's another woman who weighs more in his heart than you. He dared to let you try on the wedding dress alone today. Tomorrow he might leave you at the altar." "No, he won't," I interrupted Victor, meeting his gaze. "He won't do that to me. He knows what's important." I spoke with certainty, and Victor's breath deepened, the air around us growing tense. I pulled away from his hand. "Thank you, Vic. You can leave now. I need to change." Victor turned and left, passing through the fitting room. He seemed a bit upset, probably because Hunter was being irresponsible, leaving me, the soon-to-be bride, to try on the wedding dress and ring alone. But maybe it's for the best. I hope he can persuade Hunter so my engagement party can go smoothly. Victor, ever the gentleman, drove me home. I wanted to show my gratitude by inviting him for tea, but he declined coldly. "No need." When I got home, I found Hunter still hadn't returned. I messaged him, saying I tried on the wedding dress today and picked up the ring. After a few minutes, there was still no reply. That night, I woke from sleep. The house was quiet, my phone silent. I opened my messages to find Hunter still hadn't replied, but he had posted on social media, "Welcome back." The picture was the one that had been retracted from the group chat earlier. Suddenly wide awake, Victor's words from the fitting room echoed in my mind. "There's another woman who weighs more in his heart than you. He dared to let you try on the wedding dress alone today. Tomorrow, he might leave you at the altar." My confidence in refuting Victor now felt baseless. Seeing Hunter's post, I suddenly felt all my confidence vanish. My worries weren't unfounded. With the engagement date approaching, everything needed to be prepared, but Hunter started leaving early and returning late. Out of 5 calls, 3 times he was with Flora. His explanation was that the country had changed a lot, and Flora had finally returned, so he was showing her around. "It's not just me and Flora, the others are there too." A week passed like this. One day I was with Hunter's mother, finalizing the guest list for the engagement party, and we asked a respected elder from the Hunter family to write the engagement contract for us. Unexpectedly, Victor was there too. The elder asked, "Where's Hunter?" Hunter's mother replied, "He's busy today and couldn't make it." The elder frowned and scolded. "Today is the day to write the engagement contract. How can we write it without the future groom?" Hunter's mother looked embarrassed and signaled me to call Hunter. His phone was unreachable. As I was at a loss, Victor suddenly stepped in front of me. "Hunter flew to Tibet yesterday. Didn't he tell you?" "Tibet?" I looked at Victor in shock. Victor kindly showed me a social media post from Hunter at PM last night. "At this moment, I am above all except you." The picture showed Flora standing under a sign with this slogan, but I hadn't seen it. Hunter had blocked me from this post. My face turned pale, and Victor glanced at me, perhaps feeling sorry for me. He spoke up to help me out. "Uncle, since Hunter isn't here, let's write the contract another day." "All right, you young people really have no plans." When Hunter returned, his mother scolded him. Hunter apologized to her. She said, "What's the use of apologizing to me? You should apologize to your fiancé." So Hunter came to me. "Sorry, Sonny, I was wrong. Please forgive me. I'll take you out for a fancy dinner tonight." Hunter shook my arm, resting his head on my shoulder. He was like that, spoiled by his family, never really growing up. "Okay," I smiled softly. As I spoke, I felt a gaze fall on me. I looked up to find its source, but couldn't see who it was. I only saw Victor lowering his eyes to light a cigarette, the lighter clicking several times without success. The day Hunter took me out for a fancy dinner, the weather was terrible, pouring rain, but he didn't want to dampen my spirits, trying to cheer me up the whole way. Just as we were nearing the destination, Hunter's phone rang. "Hunter, I'm stuck in the tunnel. It's pouring and the car broke down." Henry's face changed instantly. He urgently wanted to turn around, then realized I was still in the car. "Sonny, I can't go with you to dinner. Flora is in danger." Actually, the moment I heard Flora's voice, my eyelids twitched violently. After hearing what he said, no matter how good my temper was, I couldn't help but feel resentful. If there was danger, he should have called 911, not you. My suddenly raised voice startled Henry. "What's wrong?" "Sonny, I am your girlfriend and fiancé. Why do you always leave me whenever Flora comes back?" Henry was at a loss for words, and Flora's call came in again. This time her crying was even more urgent and helpless. "Henry, the car is flooded. What should I do?" Henry couldn't explain to me any further. He dropped me off at the hotel entrance. "Sonny, I'll go pick up Flora first. You go in and wait for me, okay? I've already reserved a table." Without waiting for me to respond, he stepped on the gas, and the black car rushed into the rain. I suddenly felt exhausted and lost my appetite. I planned to leave, but my phone and wallet were still in Henry's car. I didn't have an umbrella or a phone, and now I really didn't know how to get back. I stood at the hotel entrance, staring at the pouring rain. "Belle," Victor's voice suddenly sounded behind me. He walked over, frowning. "Why are you here alone? I'll go inside. It's cold outside." Victor took off his coat and draped it over my shoulders. The warmth enveloped me, and my eyes welled up with tears. I felt both wronged and embarrassed. Why did Victor always see me whenever Henry left me? Seeing my tear-filled eyes, Victor opened his mouth as if to speak but didn't. "Have you eaten?" I shook my head. "Let's get something to eat first. I'll take you home later." Victor didn't take me home. He took me to the hospital because I sneezed twice during dinner and showed signs of a fever. Victor helped me register, get medicine, and arrange a room. Passing by a hospital room in the corridor, I suddenly heard a familiar voice. "Henry, thank you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't know what to do." "Don't say that. Drink some porridge." Flora lay on the hospital bed, her face pale. Henry was by her side, carefully and gently feeding her porridge. Such a beautiful and warm scene made even the elderly woman in the next bed sigh. "You two have such a good relationship." Flora smiled shyly, and Henry remained silent but didn't refute. I clenched my fists, feeling the urge to rush forward, but I held back. I couldn't ruin my engagement with Henry out of impulse. I pretended not to see anything, but someone behind me reminded me, "Henry, why is she here?" Victor, with his handsome frown, saw me about to rush into the room and reached out to stop me. "Mr. Victor, let it go." Victor looked back at me, his gaze deep and seemingly puzzled. But more than that, it seemed to be something else. "Belle, I think you need to reconsider your relationship with Henry." Back in the private room, Victor reminded me. I looked at the man standing in front of me, his gaze calm. "Mr. Victor, next week is my engagement ceremony with Henry. I don't want any complications." "Are you willing to marry a man who doesn't love you?" "Henry didn't say he doesn't love me," I stubbornly replied, as if I was back in the fitting room of the bridal shop. Victor looked at me deeply. Under his gaze, I gradually gave in. "Mr. Victor, do you despise me and think I'm deceiving myself?" Victor remained silent. I gave a bitter smile, my shoulders slumping. "Mr. Victor, I really need this marriage." "Why?" "In a month, my father's illegitimate child will be born. Do you know what kind of family I was born into?" "Let's put it this way. My parents are both hopeless romantics, but they don't love each other. They love anyone but each other. I am the product of their arranged marriage, the heir they had to have before pursuing true love. After I was born, their task was complete, and they went their separate ways. I was raised by a nanny, and I barely saw my biological parents twice a year. As a child, I deceived myself into thinking I was born with love and expectation. Growing up, I realized and accepted that my parents didn't love me, which led to a period of depression. Last year, I accidentally found out my father had started a new family, and his new wife was pregnant. The father who barely came home suddenly returned, not to see me, but to change his will and give half of the inheritance promised to me to his new child. My father's decision couldn't be changed, but if I married Henry to ensure the family's business continuity, I might get more considering the union of our families. I need either money or love. I mocked myself, and the atmosphere in the room grew heavy. My heartfelt confession brought tears to my eyes. Victor's gaze softened. "I'm sorry," he said gently, and I suddenly realized the compassion and guilt in his eyes made my heart tremble. He was Henry's older brother, and I might very well be his future sister-in-law. I couldn't believe I had poured out these heavy secrets buried deep in my heart to Victor. This wasn't like me, and it shouldn't have been me. Thank you for today. It's late, so if there's nothing else, Vic, you should head back. I regained my politeness and distance. Victor seemed eager to leave, but he stayed to help me with the dishes and then walked me home. During this time, apart from responding when I thanked him, Victor didn't speak to me again. The next day, Henry rushed home and asked if I was sick. I'm sorry, Sonny, it's all my fault. Henry looked guilty, probably to ease my mind. For the next few days, he stayed home and took care of me attentively. I guessed Victor had given him a talking to, and I felt even more grateful to Victor. Time flew by, and finally, it was the day of my engagement to Henry. I was dressed in my engagement outfit, and the makeup artist was complimenting me and Henry as a perfect match. Henry was right behind me, and I could see him in the mirror whenever I looked up. As the time drew near, Henry's phone started ringing frequently. I saw him hang up repeatedly, his expression changing from calm to anxious. I knew who it was. As long as Henry didn't leave the engagement party, I could pretend I hadn't seen anything, no matter what happened today. But the unexpected still happened. Flora appeared. She followed Henry, her beautiful eyes filled with tears. Henry held her hand and came to me. I'm sorry, Sonny, I can't get engaged to you now. Henry looked at me with that guilty expression again, and the faces of the elders who came to witness the engagement turned grim. Harry, stop it. Let's talk after the engagement, okay? I said softly, my tone already pleading. Both families' elders and guests were already present. Even if he wanted to back out, he shouldn't do it today. I was angry, but more than that, I was panicking. My father's scrutinizing gaze made me feel like I was on pins and needles. If the engagement couldn't proceed smoothly, I had no doubt he would immediately change his will afterward. I tried to pull Henry's hand, attempting to bring him back. Henry's face showed a moment of hesitation, but Flora's next heartfelt Harry seemed to completely awaken his reason. I'm sorry, the one I love most is Flora. Her? As soon as she spoke, Henry's mother slapped her. Henry's mother scolded her for making a scene and treating the engagement like a joke. With both families' elders and guests present, backing out now would make us a laughingstock. Mom, let's just treat today as a regular party. At worst, we can give the Belle family more business later, Henry said, feeling guilty, but his words stung me. Although my parents didn't get along, at this moment, they seemed to want to show their care and love for me. Their faces turned cold, ready to see how the Henry family would handle this. Henry's mother had always been satisfied with me as her future daughter-in-law, never expecting Henry to be the one to mess things up. She scolded and berated Henry, eventually including Flora, which touched a nerve with Henry. Henry decided to break the pot and said, "Anyway, this engagement is off today. I don't want to marry Belle." His words were more out of spite, and he regretted them as soon as they left his mouth. Susie, that's not what I meant. Amid the noisy argument, I finally understood one thing. You can't force anything. I had been carefully maintaining a facade of peace, but it was just a seemingly calm pond that would ripple at the slightest disturbance. I sat dejectedly on a stool, but then a familiar, steady voice rang out. Since my brother doesn't want to marry, I'll take his place. Silence, a deathly silence, shock, an unbelievable shock. Victor walked through the crowd, came to me and took my hand. Belle, marry me. His words were like a bomb, instantly causing an uproar. Victor, what are you talking about? Sophie is your future sister-in-law. Didn't Henry just call off the engagement? Victor chuckled. I didn't. Henry retorted, You didn't what? Do you still want Sophie to wait for you to decide between Flora and her? Henry, why do you think you're the only one with a choice? Henry's face turned pale. Today is the engagement between the Belle and Henry families. Besides the elders and guests, there are reporters here. If you call off the engagement now, What will happen to the reputation of both families? Victor said. Do you want Sophie back now? Victor's words hit the nail on the head. Between Flora and me, Henry had always been indecisive. He had just chosen Flora, and now he wanted to choose me again. The gossip alone could drown him. Victor suggested that to minimize the impact, we should change the engagement from Henry and me to him and me. The guest list only had names, so switching one wouldn't be a problem. Finding an excuse later, who would dare to object? It was better than making a scene now. Victor's tone was cold but commanding. With his current prestige and power, the Henry family still needed him to steer the ship. So, after a moment of contemplation, the elders of the Henry family tacitly agreed. As for my parents, after a brief weighing of the pros and cons, they also acquiesced. Victor ignored them and instead turned his gaze back to me. Sophie, what about you? Will you marry me? Victor looked at me, his eyes filled with a nervous inquiry rather than the oppressive tone of his earlier voice. Seeing that I didn't respond, the tension in his eyes grew even more intense. At that moment, my mind was a complete mess. But when I met Victor's steady gaze, which had a calming and reassuring smile, I instinctively said, yes. Victor breathed a sigh of relief, and his gentle eyes instantly lit up with a soft, bright light. Victor moved quickly. Within half an hour, everything at the engagement party that had my name and Henry's name on it was replaced. The guests waiting to enter looked on in confusion, and when Victor and I walked in hand, the murmurs among the crowd were endless. But everyone was smart enough to guess that something must have happened. So, despite the murmurs, when Victor and I toasted them, they still smiled and offered their congratulations. Henry sat with Flora at the table reserved for the younger generation of the Victor family. Henry's face was ashen and pale. Especially when Victor hinted for everyone to call me sister-in-law, his expression turned even uglier. He stared blankly at the interaction between Victor and me, seemingly still out of sorts. Actually, it wasn't just him who was out of sorts, I was too. Throughout the entire process, I followed Victor's lead. Victor held my waist, close but not inappropriately so. He introduced me to the various elders and guests of the Victor family, and after the engagement party ended, he immediately took me to Europe, pulling me out of the center of the storm. His excuse was, "There's new business in Europe, and I'll take you along to relax." By the time I came to my senses, I was already sitting on a bench in a famous square, feeding pigeons in front of a well-known cathedral. Victor came to find me for dinner after his meeting. In the snowy weather, he held a black umbrella over my head to shield me from the wind and snow. "What do you want to eat?" "Anything is fine." Faced with his question, I responded somewhat politely and distantly, until, to avoid a car on the street, he reached out and pulled me to his side. At that moment, I breathed in sync with him, not out of rejection, but because I hadn't yet come to terms with the fact that I was now Victor's fiancé. In my subconscious, I still thought of Victor as Vic. "Be careful, Vic." "Thank you." "You're welcome," Victor responded politely. Perhaps I wasn't the only one who hadn't adjusted to the new roles. I thought silently, noticing that Victor didn't mind my politeness, and I quietly breathed a sigh of relief as we walked forward together. But it seemed Victor forgot to remove his hand from my shoulder. I wanted to remind him but didn't know how to start. I looked up at him. He was seriously holding the umbrella, with a few snowflakes caught on his eyelashes. In this cold weather, his gaze and embrace were both gentle and warm. Victor would take a day each week to accompany me around the city. He introduced me to the city's history and shared his experiences and life in this country. "The pasta at this restaurant is a bit bad," he once complained, "but it didn't help. Then why did you order it for me?" "I wanted you to taste just how bad it is." Victor recounted his embarrassing stories in a serious tone. He looked refined and elegant, not like someone who would hold grudges over small things. So, his description had a strange sense of contrast, and I couldn't help but laugh. "It is a bit bad," I agreed. Victor's eyes also held a hint of a smile. That night, as we were about to sleep, Victor suddenly said to me, "Sophie, you should smile like you did today." I was taken aback. When I first arrived here, I was still immersed in the upheaval and sadness of that day, unable to detach myself. Even in front of Victor, I couldn't hide it well, and my smiles always seemed insincere. But Victor's words made me realize that I hadn't thought much about the broken engagement in days, and now that I did, it no longer affected my mood. It was Victor, I thought, feeling a bit grateful. "Thank you." Victor's eyes softened, and he reached out to tuck a stray lock of hair behind my ear, his gaze falling from my eyes to my lips. "Can I kiss you?" The atmosphere suddenly became a bit more intimate, and before I could react, his kiss landed, light and gentle, lingering for a while. "Good night," he said. That night, I had an indescribable dream, and when I woke up, I felt flustered and confused in front of Victor, completely forgetting about Henry. I stayed in Europe with Victor for 2 months. As the new year approached, we returned home to celebrate. The Victor family arranged a family dinner before the new year, and as soon as we landed, we headed to the Victor family home. When we opened the door, there were many familiar faces, but our identities and mindsets were different. After all, I had come with Henry before, and now, just a few months later, the person by my side had changed from Henry to Victor. "Don't be nervous. Sit next to me later." Victor gently reminded me, and I felt a bit more at ease. Victor had significant influence in the Victor family, and I sat beside him at the head table, directly across from Henry. He was alone, looking more worn and haggard compared to our last meeting 2 months ago. Seeing me, Henry's eyes lit up, but he hesitated to speak. I noticed he seemed like he wanted to greet me, but Victor suddenly called out to me, "Sophie." I turned my gaze to Victor, who smiled faintly. "Have some soup first." "Okay," I replied, catching a glimpse of Henry's dejected and bitter expression from the corner of my eye. After the family dinner, it was already late. Some elders mentioned that rooms had been prepared and asked if we would stay or go home to sleep. Instinctively, I looked at Victor, who had just had some wine. "We'll go home to sleep," he said. Victor stood up, draped his coat over my shoulders, and held my hand as we bid farewell to everyone. Once outside, I couldn't help but ask Victor, "I thought you would say we'd stay. Don't you want to?" "I didn't expect you to notice," he replied. The driver pulled the car up in front of us, and we got into the back seat. It was New Year's, and traffic was heavy. Victor, having had some wine, frowned at the erratic speed of the car. "Victor, are you okay?" His tone revealed his restraint. The driver opened the window for some fresh air. Victor leaned his head on my shoulder, and I reached out to massage his temples. He seemed to tense up. "Uncomfortable?" "No," he replied. "That's good," I sighed in relief. As I continued to massage, I suddenly realized I was feeling concerned and worried about Victor. When we got home, Victor seemed to have recovered. After I finished washing up, I saw him standing by the window, gazing into the distance. "What are you looking at?" I couldn't help but ask. Victor snapped out of his thoughts and looked at me. "Nothing," he said. The dim light by the window made his eyes look deep and unreadable. I was puzzled and glanced out the window, noticing a black car parked inconspicuously below. I frowned, but Victor suddenly called me Sophie. I instinctively responded, and he lifted my chin, removing his glasses. His passionate kiss overwhelmed me, pushing me back against the windowsill. With nowhere to retreat, I could only hold on to Victor's waist. After the kiss, he pulled away, but our breaths remained intertwined. I clearly saw the desire in Victor's eyes, deep and intense. "Can we?" My heart skipped a beat and then raced. I swallowed hard. Victor kissed me again, his hand on my waist as he reached out with the other. With a swoosh, the curtains were drawn. Before the new year, the family had more gatherings and meetings. Victor was busy and handed me a black card. "Sorry, I can't go shopping with you. Buy whatever you like with this card." God knows how much his guilty look made my heart race. Blushing, I waved my hand to refuse. "It's no big deal if you can't go shopping with me. You don't need to feel so guilty. It's okay, I can go alone." In the end, Victor still put the card in my hand. "Buy more, you can't spend it all anyway." I wandered around the mall, unsure of what to buy, and ended up in a jewelry store. I picked out a pair of men's cufflinks. When I got home, I unexpectedly ran into Henry downstairs. "Susie." He looked exhausted and disheartened. Seeing me, his eyes lit up. "Susie, I've been waiting for you for a long time. I want to talk to you." "No need," I replied coldly, walking towards the door. Henry blocked my way. "Just 10 minutes, okay? I haven't formally apologized to you." "It's really unnecessary," I said, but Henry's eyes pleaded. After all, we had dated for 4 years. Although our engagement was called off, we never had a proper farewell. I sighed. A few minutes later, Henry and I were sitting in a cafe near my home. He looked uneasy, glancing at me as if he wanted to speak but hesitated. After organizing his thoughts for a long time, he finally asked, "How are you and Vic?" "Good," I nodded. It was the truth, but for some reason, Henry's expression grew more pained. "Actually, after the engagement party, I wanted to find you, but Vic took you to Europe. I couldn't find you. I've thought a lot during this time," Henry said a lot. I don't know why, but I started recalling our past relationship. "I still remember when I proposed to you," he began, but I interrupted. "Henry, what are you trying to say now? Do you regret it?" Henry was speechless. I bluntly exposed his thoughts, looking at him coldly. "You called off the engagement for Flora, and now you act like this. What do you take me for? What do you take Flora for? Do you think the world revolves around you? People only regret their choices when they realize they've made the wrong ones." When Flora returned from abroad, Henry saw me as the wrong choice. Now he regrets it and sees Flora as the wrong choice. But I was never an option, waiting for Henry to turn back and choose again. Henry was silent, my cold gaze like a knife, cutting away at him bit by bit. His lips trembled, his face pale and ugly. 10 minutes hadn't passed, but I was already standing up. "Henry, I am now engaged to your brother. Your remorse only adds to my troubles. I don't want Victor to misunderstand, so please don't come looking for me anymore." I turned to leave, but Henry suddenly called out to me. "What if I told you that all of this was orchestrated by my brother? Sonny, I never intended to break off the engagement. It was Vic. The day before our engagement, he came to see me. I was shocked and turned back. If you don't believe me, you can check his study drawer. He's been plotting against you for a long time. He's not a good person." Feeling uneasy, I returned home. There was an extra pair of shoes at the entrance. It was Victor. He had come back too. Sure enough, the next second, his voice sounded from the staircase. "Sophie." I looked up to see Victor smiling slightly. He walked down the stairs slowly, his gentle yet intense presence quickly affecting me. "Ah," I nodded. Victor asked what I had bought. I was a bit out of it, but still answered his questions. "You should rest for a while. We'll go out for dinner tonight." Victor said he needed to go back to the study to handle some things. "I'll join you," I said, reaching out to hold his hand. He looked at me in surprise. I stammered, "I'm not tired, and I have nothing to do." My lie was clumsy, and I feared Victor would see through it. After all, I had never been to his study before, but, surprisingly, Victor agreed. "Okay," he said, worried I might get bored, and put on a movie for me. Midway, he went out to take a call. During the long minutes of waiting, I watched Victor through the half-open door as he spoke on the phone. It seemed the call wouldn't end anytime soon. My gaze fell on Victor's desk. "If you don't believe me, you can check his study drawer," Henry's voice echoed in my ears. I stood up, filled with silence, doubt, and fear. Finally, I reached out and opened the drawer, but it was empty except for a book. "Sophie." Victor's voice suddenly rang out. I was startled, and the book fell from my hands, revealing an old, yellowed postcard. The man in front of me looked puzzled, his expression serious. Seeing my actions, his gaze darkened. "What are you looking for?" His look made me feel guilty and more afraid. I couldn't answer. I was suspecting my fiancé of plotting against me, hiding secrets about me. I took a deep breath, thinking of countless excuses and reasons to avoid the situation, but a voice in my head told me not to do so. So I clenched my fists and looked Victor straight in the eye. "I have something to ask you." Victor's expression turned serious. "I saw Henry this morning. He told me some things." "Victor, I want to know, is Henry's withdrawal from the engagement related to you?" Perhaps he didn't expect me to be so direct. This time it was Victor who fell silent. "Don't lie to me, or I'll never forgive you." I laid down my ultimatum. Victor lowered his gaze, his glasses and long eyelashes hiding his thoughts. Finally, I heard Victor's voice. "Yes." My heart sank, and my head spun with that single word. "Why?" I was stunned, asking instinctively. Did Victor want to break up Henry and me? Indeed, from the first time I met him, he had shown clear indifference and dislike towards me. In subsequent meetings, he repeatedly hinted that I should break up with Henry. In Victor's mind, he never wanted Henry and me together, nor did he want me to marry into the family. But then, why did he step in at the engagement party and become my fiancé now? Unless what Henry said that day was true. "Victor, I like you." My thoughts were interrupted, and the idea that popped into my head was no less shocking than Victor's confession. I opened my eyes wide in shock. "What did you say?" Victor repeated. "A long time ago, I liked you. I didn't want you to marry Henry." A long time ago, our first meeting was when Henry brought me home. At that time, everyone assumed I was Henry's future wife. Victor had liked me since then. "You're crazy. I was supposed to be your future sister-in-law," I said. "But you didn't become his fiancé, did you?" Victor countered, looking at me with deep dark eyes behind his glasses. I saw a hint of coldness and indifference. Perhaps the real Victor. I felt a chill. Victor moved closer to me, and I stepped back. He noticed my retreat, and his expression darkened. I need some time to think," I said, flustered, escaping from Victor's side. Victor quickly grabbed my arm. I trembled. "How long?" he asked, his eyes showing a hint of vulnerability. I felt even more confused. I don't know," I said softly, trying to pull away. Victor didn't make it difficult for me. "Okay," he said. After that day, he moved out of the master bedroom and started leaving early and coming back late, giving me plenty of time and space. Our interactions suddenly felt like our first meeting again. But after all, I was already his fiancée. As the new year approached, there were more occasions we needed to attend together. We avoided some, but for those we couldn't, we had to put on a show for Victor. Outsiders couldn't see the conflict between Victor and me, except for Henry. Henry guessed that we were having issues and started to show more attention. Although I was still upset and conflicted with Victor, Henry's actions annoyed me even more. I bluntly rejected him several times, but each time he found various excuses to brush it off. Until one time after a family dinner, Victor had to leave early for something. He glanced at me, seemingly wanting to ask me something, but before he could speak, Henry said, "I'll take Susie home later." Instinctively, I looked at Victor. He pursed his lips, clearly unwilling, but responded coldly, "Whatever." He was about to leave when I stopped him. "No need, I'll go back with Vic." I directly rejected Henry. Both of them were stunned. Henry's eyes showed disappointment, but I didn't care to explore it. Victor didn't refuse my words, and we got into the car together. The car was very quiet, with Victor and me sitting on opposite sides, creating an awkward atmosphere. After a while, Victor asked, "Why didn't you let Henry take you home?" I retorted, "Do you want him to take me?" Victor had no response, turned his face away, and fell silent again. I sighed, "Actually, I have something to tell you." Before I could finish, a sudden strong force hit the car, and as I fell into darkness, I only saw Victor instinctively shielding me. It was icy and snowy. The road was slippery. Victor and I had a minor car accident after the family dinner. Henry rushed to the hospital, anxiously finding me. "Sonny, are you okay?" He held my hand, worried and forgetting his place until I pulled my hand back. "I'm fine, really fine. I had the airbag and Victor protecting me, so I wasn't hurt." Victor took a bigger impact than I did, and the doctor was still examining him. Probably wouldn't be out for a while. I thought about it and decided I should clarify things with Henry. "Henry, tonight I originally wanted to talk to Victor first, then you." Henry looked at me with some expectation and brightness in his eyes, but my calm and serious demeanor made him appear confused and helpless. "What do you want to tell me?" "These days, you should have noticed the issues between Victor and me. Maybe you're right. He did interfere in our relationship. But the reason for our breakup and separation shouldn't be entirely blamed on him." I quietly looked at him and said softly, "After that, I went to find Flora." Henry's breathing became lighter. One person's biased words can easily blind someone. I need to seek the truth and listen to multiple perspectives. After Victor and I got engaged, Flora and Henry quickly had conflicts. Henry gradually understood his feelings, and Flora saw Henry's true nature. So, shortly after Victor and I went abroad, they broke up again, and Flora returned to her hometown. Honestly, finding her wasn't easy. Without Henry, we had a calm conversation. She had mixed emotions towards me and in the end only said sorry. The conversation ended there. After returning, I thought a lot. Regardless of what roles Flora and Victor played in it, the root cause was in my relationship with Henry. I always knew you were paying attention to Flora, liking her posts, taking midnight flights across the ocean to celebrate her birthday. I knew everything you did for Flora. As my voice fell, the color drained from Henry's face. "Then why did you never?" Henry asked softly, but halfway through he understood. "Why did I never say anything or demand or argue? It's simply because I didn't like you that much. Because I didn't like you, I was indifferent to your actions. And Vic?" Henry asked. "Do you like Vic now?" He looked at me expectantly. I pondered for a moment. Actually, just now while sitting here, my mind was full of him. The light in Henry's eyes gradually faded. Finally, Henry murmured, "I understand." He left the hospital in a daze. After a while, I stood up from the bench and turned to see Victor standing behind me. I didn't know how long he had been there or how much he had heard. I tried to stay calm and walked up to him. "Are you okay? What did the doctor say?" Victor didn't respond. He just suddenly grabbed my hand and led me away. At home, he cornered me against the wall. I was surrounded by his intense presence. He kissed me passionately, making it hard for me to speak. But I still had to say, wait, Victor, I have something to say." Victor stopped his actions. I pursed my lips. "You heard everything at the hospital, didn't you?" "I'm not someone who expresses emotions well. I don't know how to love others, nor do I know how to communicate. The bravest attempt I ever made at communication was probably back in school, when I used a random email address as a trash can to vent my emotions. Because I never received any positive feedback, sometimes I couldn't even tell myself apart. My feelings for others, whether they stem from a desire for intimacy or genuine affection, were always confusing, but I know that my feelings for Victor and Henry are different. I don't know if this is love, but I can learn, I said softly, not daring to look into Victor's eyes. Victor's arm tightened, lifting me to sit on the bar counter. I had no choice but to gaze into his eyes. Victor was serious yet gentle. You don't need to learn, just feel, he said. Our Cold War ended there. Victor showed me so much tolerance and gentleness. It was as if he was teaching me how to love. Sometimes I couldn't handle it and would ask him, "How are you so good at this?" He wouldn't answer but would ask, "Do you like it?" "Yes, I do." It turned out that being cared for and favored felt like this. I nodded. Victor seemed to push his luck a bit, always making me open my eyes when I asked him something. He would always ask me, "Who am I?" and only be satisfied when I called out his name. "Victor, did you fall in love with me at first sight?" I wondered if he was just attracted to my looks, but then I thought, Victor shouldn't be that shallow. It wasn't until shortly after we got married that someone in our high school class group suggested a reunion. I logged into my long unused social media account and felt an overwhelming sense of familiarity when I saw my profile background. In Victor's study, there was an old yellowed postcard tucked in a book that looked exactly like my background. I was a bit surprised and followed the clues. When I saw all the junk emails I had sent during my teenage years, I suddenly realized that the email address I had treated as a trash can might have been Victor's. Extra, Victor. During my college startup days, I registered an email specifically for sending advertisements. One day, I found a personal letter from a stranger in that inbox. It was a confession from a young girl. Every 2 or 3 days, she would write a new email, mostly about the difficulties she encountered. From her words, I could tell she was quite young. I thought it was just the melodrama of a teenage girl and didn't pay much attention, letting the emails pile up. I didn't intend to pry, thinking that if she didn't get a response for a long time, she would realize she had the wrong email and stop, but I didn't expect her to persist for an entire year. Later, I understood that she didn't expect a reply. She just used the advertisement email as a place to vent her emotions. This went on for a long time, and I got so used to it that I could tell it was her email just by the notification sound. One day, I realized I hadn't received an email from that girl in a long time. I wondered if something had happened to her. I opened her last email, which said that she had depression and was now taking a break from school. Unlike before, her despair was palpable even through the screen. At that moment, I felt a pang of anxiety and worry. I reviewed all her past emails and learned that she had been unhappy due to her parents. I regretted my initial indifference and wondered if things would have been different if I had encouraged her from the start. I decided to send an email asking about her current situation. After much thought, not knowing what to say, I sent a postcard instead. It was a photo of a sunrise over a mountain taken during a trip. Because I liked it, I added a quote, "Even the darkest nightmares are eventually torn apart by the dawn." I hoped the girl would understand my message, but unfortunately, that email, like the countless junk advertisements I had sent, disappeared into the void without a response. Later, I attended my cousin's parent-teacher meeting and was added to a group chat by the teacher. Among the introductions, a particular profile picture caught my attention. "Belle, this is a parent group, not a student group. Let your parents join," the teacher said. "Teacher, I can handle my own matters without involving my parents," a cold, stubborn voice replied from the corner. It was a face I didn't recognize, cold and defiant. Suddenly, she overlapped with the persistent email sender in my mind. "Hunter, is that girl in your class?" "You mean Belle? Yeah, she's a bit odd. Why, bro?" "Oh, nothing, just that our families have some old connections." "Connections? How come I don't know about this?" Hunter looked puzzled. "It's from the older generation. Anyway, since you're in the same class, keep an eye on her for me." Hunter, always stubborn, didn't agree immediately. I had to promise to buy him his favorite sports car when he went abroad. All right, bro, I got it. Under the lure of the sports car, Hunter finally complied. Belle had stopped sending emails. I was about to go abroad and couldn't keep track of his situation, so I had to entrust Hunter with it. Until Hunter graduated, I returned home. In front of a room full of guests, I saw Hunter holding Belle's hand as they walked in. "Belle, this is my brother." "Hello, Vic," she said. The once cold and young girl in my memory had grown up, and there was no trace of the sorrow and fragility from her self-disclosure emails. My heart sank suddenly, and an inexplicable anger surged within me. I knew I shouldn't be angry, but seeing her with Hunter made my heart uncontrollable, just like when I couldn't help but care about and seek out Belle. Actually, if Hunter treated Belle well, I wouldn't have any objections. At most, it would be out of sight, out of mind. But I knew about Hunter and Flora's relationship. If a wicked thought emerged in my mind, it drove me step by step to approach Belle. But after all, Hunter was my cousin, so I gave him 3 chances. 3 strikes, and if he still chose Flora, then he wouldn't deserve Belle. I found Flora and gave her a plane ticket. Why should I listen to you? If you return home, you might still have a chance with Hunter. If you choose to stay once Hunter gets engaged, I will not allow any mishaps in his marriage. Under my provocation, Flora chose to return home. But I knew these things couldn't be hidden for long. Soon, Hunter and Belle would know the truth. Hunter was the first to find me, questioning why I had to break him and Belle apart. "Vic, how could you take advantage of the situation?" "Didn't you take advantage of the situation back then too?" I retorted. Hunter's face turned pale, as if recalling something. Soon, Belle also found out. I was terrified, my mind in chaos, yet I still reached out to protect her when the car crashed. "Belle, how could you only now realize that I was the one who met you first and fell for you?"